we'll get started.
Okay.
Okay, so MJ, welcome. I am excited, and I love the fact that off the cuff is good because I think those are the genuine conversations. I just think we don't do these often enough, you know?
Yeah. It's interesting how many are trying to find real, and yet they are dependent upon some electronic mechanism to create real, and it's so far from real. It's a machine, folks.
Right. Okay, so just that statement alone, right? We're searching for real, but the only real is real, like not anything technological. It's sitting down together and having a conversation.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
interesting enough, that has been a big piece of my learning in the realm that I have lived for the last 15 years. The individuals who live in a real world that is not necessarily the most favorite accommodating to what their lifestyle has become. Uh, they they uh, they manage it, and consequently, but as somebody who is normal, um, that what excuse do I have? I have none.
Right. Yeah. So tell me about where you have been these last 15 years. Talk me through like how did you get there? Did you ever think you'd be doing this? Kind of give me get me there.
In a previous life, Carlinville, Illinois was hometown.
Okay.
Grew up, and I was not the most studious individual. And my family owned a hardware store that actually my grandfather had started. So that was my education. I apprenticed under several different plumbers, electricians. I had my license, and I managed a relatively large, we had towards the mid 90s, we were $1 million in sales. And all throughout that time frame, I had a hobby that had morphed from hobby to passion to it was starting to look like a vocation, which was called archery. And
Okay.
throughout that time frame, my wife had, and we'd both been involved in the sport. She, as a competitor, certainly much more than I. So my skill development had to be as a coach for her to want me to go along. And so I started paying attention to what was out there, and through several contacts and the various organizations, we both kind of fell into a job that revolved around archery. She, in 97, she moved from Illinois, Carlinville, to California to manage their national headquarters for the Field Archery Association in Redlands, California. And I still worked at the hardware store, and we would visit every night, but we would touch base face to face 3 months, 4 months. Uh, anyway, several years later, 99, there was an opening through USA Archery, and I got the position as an administrator for the archery program at that time, which was the Olympic Training Center in Chula Vista, California. And so because we had resident athletes that were minors, I was on site Monday through Friday, lived in dorm, uh, intermingled with a variety of coaches, track and field and race walking from Venezuela, and Hungarian canoe kayak coach, and just the gamut. The field hockey coach was Indian. And so I was just immersed in, okay, what's the best way to make things happen? Throughout that, I also did some organizational stuff for my wife's organization, and that entailed a trade show and equipment setup and logistics to get equipment to and from events and such. And throughout that time, I managed archers, trying to get them to and from, and scheduling and all that stuff. And in that group were folks in wheelchairs or amputees or visually impaired. And just like all of the archers that are on occasions pain, uh, these folks that were rolling around in wheelchairs were no less more of a pain to me than anybody else. So I never saw them as anything other than just archers. And so I had known the head coach for the Paralympic head coach for USA Archery for a long, long time. And in '09, she said, MJ, we need some help at a training camp in Lakeshore Foundations in Birmingham, Alabama. Just an incredible complex. They have a wheelchair rugby team and a basketball team and a facility that's just wow. Anyway, I from that point became involved with the team and trainings, and interacted with a variety of the athletes at all sorts of level. I was staff for several of their international events, and Paris will be number 4 games for me. So I was in London, in Rio, in Tokyo, and Paris is going to be a little bit different in that I won't be a part of the coaching staff. I have been requested by the World Organization to come in and be an official through them. So I'm half and half, well, maybe a little bit more than half and half is I have to remain neutral. I'm not supposed to interact with any of the countries, and that'll be certainly a different environment because I've been in the coaching box behind
Right.
archers and interacted with Team USA and schlepped around equipment and all that stuff. But it is what it is. It's an opportunity, and it was interesting. It kind of fell in from the sky. In January, I start getting emails from the World Organization asking what's my schedule for Paris, and I said nothing's been decided. There's no applications been set out and all this stuff. And towards the end of the month, the executive general for World Archery, which I've known for a number of years, Tom Deland, he sends me an email. He says, MJ, we didn't quite explain ourselves. We want you to come to be part of this group. And by the way, we need a decision by the end of the month. Well, this is the 28th. And I said, oh,
Okay.
okay, that sounds like a pretty cool deal. And then I contacted another friend from France, and I said, what did I just agree to? And he says, you can't be a part of Team USA at all. And so anyway, it'll be just a different perspective. And games number 4, I have interestingly enough, I was in Athens coaching a Canadian archer at the Olympic Games. So I've been to both Olympic Games on the field of play and the field of play for the Paralympic Games as well.
Wow. Okay, so I have one really kind of quick question. Can you behave yourself in Paris and be neutral, MJ? Like, let's be real.
But I've already had conversations with several of the athletes and told them that there won't be a lot of contact tracing, not nearly what we had in Tokyo. So look forward to some message like let's just shoot your bow, or what's going on, or good on you. Those messages are liable to happen
Yeah.
in the flow.
Wow. So, well, my mind is in so many places. Just thinking that you're this little boy from Carlinville, Illinois, Macoupin County in the, farm country, and you're going to your fourth games, fifth game. Like, you can't imagine what that path would have ever been.
Not at all. And that's the one of the interesting pieces that is that uh, I'm just a guy that has fallen into some places. I've been to over 30 countries with archery, and I have done stuff uh, for a number of federations in Hong Kong and Tokyo and South America. I'm actually going to Medellin, Colombia in October. And then later in the fall, we'll be doing some stuff for Costa Rica. And again, I just have been very, very fortunate to interact and have support and a knowledge base in the realm of, uh, and they call it adaptive archery, and they call them disabled athletes. That's such a misnomer that
Yeah,
these
talk to me about that. These words that we are throwing around, does talk to me about that.
differently abled or limb different
Okay.
work a whole lot better because the differently abled in our sport and in almost any sport you talk about, there are adaptations that are required. My brother is a golfer, and if he has one golf club, he has 40, and uh, different grips and different shafts and the club heads and all that stuff. Similar in archery. Anybody that walks in and buys a bow has to have it adapted to them. And in my world, or the folks that I primarily work with, the adaptations is just a little different, grander scale, and it's uh, it's just a matter of perspective and the value. As I talk to a number of the coaches, is the value that you learn by living in a world where you're thinking outside the box all the time. You're
Hmm.
always trying to analyze what's in front of you. And the thought has to be, can I make this better? Or could I make this easier? Or
Right.
is my conversation pertinent and relevant in that moment? And do I need to not say anything as much as do I need to say something? And so that in the world, you become a little more cognizant of how you fit and what you do. Uh, I was very fortunate early on. My father was a charter member of our local Toastmasters club.
Okay.
And like most service clubs, we need members.
Yep.
And so I was a member of the Toastmasters Club here. And throughout the course of travel and living between California and uh, uh, 5 winters in South Dakota after my
Oh,
wife's organization moved their headquarters to Yankton, South Dakota. Yippee-o-ki-yay.
ooh, I don't think
Yeah.
that's the direction you're supposed to go in the winter.
Oh my goodness. That it just brutal. The snowflakes had Montana labeled on them. They were blowing across. It was an interesting time uh,
Uh-huh.
in learning. But you adapt to those things and you learn from that, and the perspective that allows you to, again, how can I be not only a better communicator, which is what Toastmasters is, and make sure that the words I I reference Jackie Chan. I don't remember what movie, but one of them will say, "Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?" And so that's a requirement. And when I
Yeah.
have a conversation with an athlete, I want to make sure that they understand the verbiage that I'm using, and that it is valued and valuable in that moment. And very often, as with many times while communicating, it's best if you just pause and allow the information to absorb
Mhm.
and then go on,
Yeah.
as opposed to thinking about what your response is going to be from the question that you just received. Stop. And it's just such a valuable tool. You hear it and you listen, and you the fillers that go in, the like, and the one that seems to be so prevalent right now is right. It,
I'm agreeing.
it it, it
Uh-huh.
just it just flows out. And as a communicator, as a someone that is providing some expertise, the last thing I want to do to the audience is ask them if I'm right. I'm the expert. I'm right.
Correct.
I don't have to ask them.
I have a shirt somebody gave me that says, "Let's assume I'm right. It'll just go faster."
Oh, precisely. That's the deal. Is it
Yeah.
you have to have that. And for to fall back, there were many years where I was ashamed, I guess, of not going to college. I didn't go to college.
Oh.
And so I was around PhDs, I was around scientists, I was around the folks from the USOPC, I was around CEOs, and here I am, this lum from nowhere, flat ground, Illinois, and I'm uh, I'm interacting, and it's been not too terribly long that I have way gotten over that.
That's a MJ, that's so I want to ask two questions on that. You said back when you went to California with your wife, you were immersed in different cultures and different people. How were you prepared for that immersion, leaving flat country Illinois to go there? And at what point did you this letting go of being ashamed of not going to college? I mean, did that how did you see that play out through your life? So that immersion, how were you prepared to be immersed coming from white middle country USA?
It was interesting because I the the organization had transitioned to a new executive director that was
Okay.
military. And he and I really hit it off, got along very, very well. And one of the aspects that got me the job was I told him that I was a member of Toastmasters. So he knew I could and had communicated on a relatively small scale, but I had given some speeches and I had done some presentations and actually done a couple of their award ceremonies. Uh, so he knew that that ability was there. And through Toastmasters, you learn to stand on your hind legs and interact and kind of let the chips fall where they may. And one of the big learns was I had arranged for a science group to do some evaluations on athletes and their performance and the all of their aspects, from strength training to nutrition to hydration. And we had a stack of experts that had come in from those fields. And we're in San Diego, and the meeting is about 20 minutes out, and I get a message. The facilitator is stuck at an airport.
Oops.
Whoa. So guess who gets to be a facilitator? Can't spell a lick. And I have a whiteboard and all of these folks that are going to throw messages up. And so you
Mm.
just you turn to them and you say, I need help. And we're going to work this out because
Yeah.
you're here and I'm here, and this meeting just has to happen. So over the course of those types of experiences and just, I guess, this gray,
Yes, a little
there's a
bit
lot of
of
there's a lot of wisdom that has been captured with this gray, and it's just a matter of I really don't care. Nobody can hurt me.
yeah. It really is a decision that you make. It is there. I was talking to my coach, my executive coach, just a couple weeks ago, and I was talking about my business and how much I'm working. And she's like, and what is it that you need to do to make the changes you keep talking about making? And I said, oh, I just have to decide. So at some point, you decided that it was no big deal. You didn't go to college. Okay. I mean, so you don't have the book learning other people have. I know lots of people who went to college who have a lot of book learning, and they got some learning to do in life because they're not real common sense, you know?
Well, yeah, exactly. And that part of that came from the hardware store. We have a local college, Blackburn College here in Carlinville, and we would have professors that would walk in and didn't know what washer to put on their faucet. And I was telling them how to fix their faucet or change a light bulb, and I thought, oh, okay, maybe I'm not missing a whole lot.
Right.
And to this day, that's kind of an outlet for me. I do plumbing stuff for my son and grandson, and just that's uh, and my wife would always say, "Well, I have tools to fix tools. I have more tools.
Oh, so
We're
you're
not
like your
even."
brother with the golf clubs. So let's
Oh,
not bash the brother with the 40 golf clubs
oh,
when you
oh
got the
no,
tools.
I don't. He was logistics for Allen Bradley and traveled all over the world for
Okay.
that, and hates to climb on an airplane now. He's a million mile and has
Wow.
retired and all that stuff. And I could not
Mhm.
work for the man. His life is like this, and
Okay.
and
Very straight.
that's not me at all.
Right.
The flyby, okay, what's there today, we're going to make it happen.
Have you Okay, so two things before I forget. One, you said back before when we were talking about your archers, they're not disabled, they're different able. Okay. That professor that walked into the hardware store and you, different able,
Right.
different smart, right? Like I had a conversation this morning with some financial things and working on some estate planning with some farm families, and I could not get it in my head. Like this does not compute. And the guy I was talking to, he walked me through some things, and then he said, Cheryl, what you do, like we're different smart, we're
Yeah.
different abled, which is I just fascinating. And I wish that's one of my wishes for, if you will, this world right now is that instead of seeing you, non-college graduate, or like you said, they're just archers, they're just archery, they're just humans, they're not disabled, different able, they're just archers.
So true.
Why yeah, I want us to get there, because then that takes away all of the shame that we all carry for all the things that we didn't do or we did do.
Yep. We live in a world of judgment,
Oh, every
and
day,
people
all
have
day.
no idea of what they are or who they are interacting with and what their story happens to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for the good or the bad,
Oh, it's all right.
I know some tough stories.
Yeah. I've thought about that with those, the decision that we make to the decisions that we make to not be ashamed of not going to college. That is an easy decision, but it is our brain and a decision. So I wonder about those people that you come in contact with who are different able and have a limb missing or brain development or all of those things. Some of them born that way, some of them in accidents, I think. And how, I mean, it has to be a decision on their part to live forward, to
Right.
not, right? It, um, it, it's a, so I had a brother who was killed when he was 8 years old in a farming accident. And my mom and dad chose to move forward. I mean, they grieved and all of the things, but it was a decision in their life to not let that take them down. And
Yeah.
so these young, and what ages are you in contact with that, like, I mean, the fortitude you must be, and I just can't imagine what that's like.
I'll have to send you a video clip. The organization that I work with out of the St. Louis area, uh, DASA, Disabled Athlete Sport Association. They're
Okay.
an affiliate of Move United, which was, up until a couple of years ago, Disabled Sports USA. And they have
Okay.
affiliates all over the country. I actually just did a workshop for them in Phoenix 3 weeks ago. And so they are all inclusive, intellectual, visually impaired, physically, regardless of, it's a y'all come. And they do
Okay.
sport. Uh, uh, this group just finished what were their gateway games. They did swimming, they did field, uh, track and field, the push chairs. We did archery. They do just the gamut of sports and of all ages, from probably 6 or 7 would be the youngest, to those that are in their 30s and 40s, uh, for the most part. And interestingly enough, the executive director for this group, she is just a dynamo. She was a physical therapist that saw as she would work with clients once a week, twice a week, once every other week, that she was fixing the same thing all the time. And so
Oh,
the history behind the Paralympic Games is that a physician in the UK saw soldiers coming back from World War II in 48 that were just thrown into a bed. And he said, we can do better. And he was at a facility in England. I'll think of the name. Anyway, so
okay.
they did sport. They did basketball, they did archery, they did track, they did all sorts of things. And that was the genesis of the Paralympic Games. Uh, uh,
Hmm.
Ludwig uh, in Stoke Mandeville. Anyway, so it wasn't until 1960 that the Para Games, and Para has as definition has nothing to do with disability. Para is alongside paralegal,
Yeah.
and so the games happen 2 to 3 weeks after the same facility, same village, in most cases the same venues, and they bring in staff, volunteers that have a little more training about transport and
Oh.
logistics and how to get people to and from for whatever. And the games are just
Hmm.
uh, pretty incredible. I have to
Yeah.
recommend, if you ever have the opportunity, go. It
Okay.
is just an incredible. And with any luck, there'll be a little more broadcast this year. Everything at the games is choreographed.
Okay.
Everything at the games is filled. It depends upon who has the rights in whatever country as to how much they're going to broadcast. And in most cases, NBC, they have the rights and they kind of pick and choose. And so you'll see
Okay.
a lot of gymnastics, and so you'll see a lot of swimming, but you probably won't see a lot of archery, or you won't see a lot of bocce, or you won't see a lot of some of the less than high profile sport,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
just too bad. But our elimination rounds are choreographed. We have a ready room, and we sit 20 minutes, half an hour pre our match, and then there's a producer that lines everybody up, and you get a 3, 2, 1, you're on. And it is
Oh my.
that discipline within minutes, you know when the match is going to happen. In Tokyo, I was with the archer that won the gold medal there, an interesting fellow, Kevin Mather, a California boy that was training for an Ironman and was on a bike ride in SoCal and got hit, knocked into a ditch. And fortunately, he was ahead of the chase group. And so they picked him up out of the ditch, and a group of uh, helpers, Triumph Foundation, which is just an incredible support all along the coast of California for spinal cord injury. And so they helped with the rehabilitation of Kevin, and he actually went on to do the Kona Ironman after his accident. And then he was on the downhill ski team, and his parents said, "Listen, go find something just a little safer." And so he picked up archery. And so anyway, so we're in Tokyo, and his first match was at about 9:30 that morning. His gold medal match was finished about 10:30 that night. So it's an all-day process.
Wow.
So
Wow.
you figure out, you make sure that there's nourishment and hydration, and uh, that particular day it was raining on and off, and so trying to keep him warm. People with spinal cord injuries have just a real challenge in trying to regulate body temperature depending upon how high the injury is. So you figure things out, and so then the learn for a coach is pretty rounded. You learn not only
Right.
about how to develop the sport skill, but you learn about transport, how to take apart a wheelchair, uh, uh, all of the
Right.
things that go
I'm,
along
th-
with the
yeah, I'm
the
thinking about,
prosthetic.
all of that. I mean, flying there and the logistics of, I mean, it's enough for me to get my suitcase to the airport. First of all, to even book the flights. I don't know if you have a personal assistant booking your flights to all these places, or you just like, I don't know, maybe they got the red carpet for you in St. Louis
No,
that you just get.
no, there occasionally somebody will book it and they'll say, "Oh, okay, does this fit?" And I'll have to acknowledge that. But and that's an interesting aspect of it, is that we're the first ones on the plane because they can't use aisle chairs once there are people
Oh,
on the plane. And similarly, the disembark is the same way. So everybody gets off the plane, and then the attendants, the ground crew, bringing on the aisle chair, and they pick up piece. Well, one of my jobs is to go out on the jetway and figure out whose wheelchair is the first one, and go to 26C because that's the one you need to pick up next. And so the rule of once you leave the plane, you can't get back on. We don't do that. They let me back on because I tell them, if you don't let me back on, this is going to take all day. And, and so, and so the flight attendants are like, oh, okay, we can bend that rule for you. And so they do. And just a little aside, we of course commercial. And so we were flying back from Rio, and the U.S. Men's basketball and rugby team were flying with us. And my job, again, out on the jetway, figure out whose chair. Well, the whole jetway was full of chairs. There was 30, 35 chairs on there. And it's like, okay, what's going on? And so trying to explain to who to go pick up next. And a lot of those athletes are relatively independent. They're double amputees or whatever. And so they just hopped down and they scooted themselves up the aisle out on the jetway, found their chair, and they were off scooting away. But and so it just it lends a different perspective of uh,
yes.
I don't have it hard. I I don't have to I don't have to try to find in wintertime a place to park because the handicap spot was open, so we filled that with snow. I don't have
Oh
to when I go to a
gosh.
doorway, and here in the Midwest where it's a double door and it's not electric, I have to open that door, hope it doesn't close quick enough so I can get my chair inside. And oh, by the way, there's another door I have to open.
We don't think about that.
Zero.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I have to ask, can visually impaired or blind people do archery? Because that might be a little
Oh,
scary if you're on the other side of that. Like,
absolutely.
you know, thinking,
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
how in the world?
They have what's referred to as a tactile sight. So it
Okay.
is nothing out of the ordinary as far as an archery equipment. It's just mounted on typically like a tripod. And that's the hand that has the bow in it. That is their touch point. and that moves up, down, left, right, depending on where the target is. And they're just like everybody else. Our games run off of whistle commands, and once their apparatus is set up, you couldn't tell them from anybody else on the archery field.
So this sport, because I mean, it's individual. Like if I'm going to do this, I'm going to shoot for the target, but I'm part of a team too. So I'm thinking, why would someone want to do archery? Like what is the, you know, you, the, um, what's the word I want? Like, okay, cross country. I mean, there's adrenaline after that, but you've run for 2 miles. I mean, again, this is me flippantly going, I'm just going to shoot at something and see if I hit the bullseye. It's not that simple.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Zen in the art of books, the the uh, the beginner, the first one was Zen in the art of archery, and it was a Brit that went to the East. I believe, I don't think it was China. I think actually it was in Japan.
Okay.
And to understand what is the art. In the Eastern culture, archery is a martial art,
Oh,
and the target is of little relevance. The performance is the relevance. It's how do I
oh.
interact with this equipment to perform at my best. There's no subjectivity. There isn't somebody watching me as a panel and saying 9. That one of the worst things that has happened is when a judge from a distance does a 10, and every athlete you talk to, there was a slip in that performance. It wasn't a 10. It was not perfection. And yet someone said it was perfection. And then what happens is the slippery slope, the internal that understands and does the sports skill, just heard, I can get by with. And so
Oh, yeah.
now it's okay for me to screw up a little bit because nobody noticed it. And so the strive for the ultimate no longer there. I don't have to. In archery, to print an archery target, the printer has a dead center X, and it is small. It is maybe a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch X.
Okay.
And I have targets with thousands of arrows, holes in it. Nobody hits the X. There's always room to improve. There's always the chance of doing it better.
Better.
And often the arrow will strike close to the middle. The next one, not close. And the next one. So there's always that initiative to strive to be better. And the only person that has the ability to do that
Is you.
that's
Yeah.
it. And so
I'm thinking, yeah.
it fits a military so much. I have been involved with a group, Operation Enduring Warrior, OEW. And so very long, they were Tougher Mudder and Spartan races and all of that stuff. And they carried folks through mud and up walls and all this stuff. And about 3 or 4 years ago, they branched out into archery and found that it was the subliminal part of it was cathartic. just me, the bow, and my ability.
I'm thinking about MJ, the application to our lives. And even though no one says to that person who got the 10, I don't have to be perfect. Your brain knows that because we are, I mean, it's so powerful. And so if we think about the subliminal messages that chip away at us, that add up over time, even the subliminal, you didn't go to college and, okay. And then I think about what you said before from Toastmasters and all of the filler words. And I hear that with young people. Well, oh yeah, okay, or awesome, awesome. We throw words around, and I think just the performance, it isn't the target. That's irrelevant. It's what we bring to that, and I think so much of our world is outwardly focused, and we feel like we lose control, or I'm so anxious over whatever. If I hear that word one more time, by the way, I just want to say to people, you're normal nervous, like this is, you've not done this yet. Of course, your belly feels like butterflies, but
Right. Yeah. Just make them fly in formation.
yes. And I think we aren't quiet enough. And I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about, okay, if I'm focused, because I've shot a gun and I'm, it's not about the target, it's about getting there and okay, what is better next time? And this is all right here. It's just me. I have to own it. And if we could strengthen that and have those be better practices, that would improve so much of and I'm thinking particularly for young people who don't have the adversity that even you and I had as kids growing up, even though comparatively we didn't have that much adversity. Just the beauty in the life lessons in this, like it just clicked in my brain.
Oh, absolutely. And the interesting aspect, if you watch and see and learn that in all aspects, there's an internal component that wants to strive to be the best. And it is always in some method or some mode of survival. Schizophrenia is a method of survival.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go and I'm going to make my own world and I'll live there because it's comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that you want to push to be a better athlete, be a better mom, be a better person, you have to work within that realm, because as soon as you mess up and you say, this is stupid, why in the world did you do that? Guess who just took a note and made that? Because the next time you're in that situation, that note is going to be drawn out of the pocket, and it's going to say, ooh, last time we were here, we really screwed up. Let's just not do that.
Yes.
Another close, yeah,
Yes.
go ahead.
Well,
So,
and that's when we don't, okay, if we're anxious and we remember that and our brains go, oh, now we're this. Next time it's 2 times worse. And then it's 4 times worse. And it's 8 times worse. And then we avoid, and the body keeps the score.
oh, yeah, it certainly absolutely does. And when it hears, well, that was stupid, or
Yeah.
and the crazy thing is, maybe not so crazy, is we're surrounded with negativity. Stop, don't go there. That you and I use the example of a youngster, 10, 12, 13 months old, that is mobile. They are crawling, they are getting up and around. And then this person that they trust and feeds them all the time comes over and grabs their hands, their arms, and say, "Here, stand up." And the kid's brain's like, "You are crazy. I'm on these wobbly legs. What's going on?" And through encouragement, pretty soon we're leaning on the footstool or we're against a chair. And that same person that they trust says, "Come on, take a step." And the kid looks down like, "What? I got to balance on one leg and lean forward and step. And this makes no sense at all. I was getting along just fine." But through encouragement, pretty soon we start seeing a walk.
Mhm.
And then within weeks, we go from walk to run.
Mhm.
And that person that encourages all this way now does, watch out for that corner. Don't go down those steps. Be careful. And from that point on, we are in the box,
Yes.
afraid of failure. Can't be afraid of fail.
I that is what a great description. I had a conversation with a young woman this morning, and she has 3 young children and her mom had passed away. So I'm kind of walking her through some parenting things, and she said, "I don't want to make my boys anxious." And I said, "Then don't tell them, be careful. Don't. They're boys. Just let them. Like let them. They'll figure it out. They're going to figure out they shouldn't do that again." And some kids take 2 or 3 times to figure that out
Well,
because they're
exactly.
adventure, and
Yeah,
it's
there's
okay.
there's stitches here, and uh, there's scar here, and
Sure.
yeah, boys do things like that.
Yes, and then they tell their friends later, "Oh my gosh, when my mom was gone, my boys told me this." Th- They wondered, I often wondered why I had black spots on my driveway. I found out not too long ago. My kids are 25 and 28, and they said, "Oh, well, yeah, you know that Pam stuff you spray in the pan, to non-stick? It's very flammable." And they said, "But we did it away from the house, like at the sidewalk, so everything was fine." Which
Well, yeah.
they're right. So, okay, but they learned a lot of things. So our brains are so powerful. And that's my next question for you, because I had a conversation with a gentleman last night who was 67 years old, and he started in on the young people. "Well, I don't know. And I said, "Okay, so does it matter that they do it differently than you?" "Well, they just don't business casual." I said, "Yeah, they're wearing a suit coat with flip-flops, business casual." Like, you know, and he was really quiet because I asked him up, I kind of challenged him. We're doing this to them, just like we do that to the little people, and we say, "Oh, don't touch that. Oh, don't go there. Be careful. Don't." We do that to the young people now, going, "Well, you can't, and you don't have this experience." And what has been your experience? You spend more time with young people than you do with old people, right?
Yep.
Or okay, because they're
Yeah.
way more fun. Old people
But
are really not
they,
fun.
and in most cases, they have no filter. And so they're very direct. And at the same time, as soon as they realize that you're trying to fake it, they tell you, "Doesn't make any sense. Don't go there. Tell me for real." Because they can understand that.
Yeah.
If again, right back to the genuine, they are genuine because they have not had enough life experience to know how to build the wall,
Say
the
that
protective
again.
wall that ever they have not had enough life experience. They have no prejudice, and they they don't see the value in building the protective wall that we all have.
Yes. And we have the wall. We have the wall, and that is hurting them because
Oh,
we're not willing to put our wall down and put our armor down and say, "You know what? I don't know how to do this like you do. I know what my experience is. I don't know what yours is. Let's talk about that. Maybe I need to learn something from you or vice versa. And I find and we met through the CEO program, which I've talked about on this podcast before, these young people, you bring them to the table, they are hungry. Like you and I are hungry to learn from other people. They're hungry. They want that connection.
Yes, very much so. As soon as they have an understanding that you're not there to dictate how it should be done, and you allow them to do a little bit of a free flow, and yet they know that as soon as they go too far outside the line, that there's uh, someone that will help to protect that. The 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 learn and the willingness to explore is just exponential. It just incredible to watch and see. And as you said, that it's disheartening, and that was probably one of the biggest drivers for me. Is I had a football coach in high school that was
Uh-huh.
we won't call him that, but he was,
Mm-hmm.
and berated and belittled, and small folks and non-runners, just, and I swore never, never.
And I don't think they realize the damage that they do.
Oh, not at all, because that's such an impressionable time in life. Uh, yeah, not a clue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sad.
It is sad. And like you said, I love that word disheartening. I feel that often, MJ, when I am out and I talk to people, I am disheartened by people's lack of hope or something. And my experiences are so different than that. I'm not disheartened by this youth. I'm not disheartened by now. I think there are things that are on a trajectory that are not good. And I think that has to do with our faith. I think that has to do with several things. I don't have, I don't lack hope though, because I see people like you working with youth, and we're 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 putting back into them. It's solution. I can't even put the words to it. We're pouring back into them and restoring some of that, because how many negatives versus how many positives, right? If you hear 10 positives and one negative, our brains go to the one negative. That's how powerful it is. So
Yep, very, very much so. And interesting, I actually coach a lady on Oahu and have for a number of years. She was a retired school principal, superintendent, retired several times. She's just a great organizer, and the school systems would call her back. And so she shot when she was in college. She is a New Yorker, Long Island, born
okay.
and raised. And then in the 60s, Peace Corps called her to Oahu. And so she married and got involved in education and all that stuff. And later in life, she had shot when she was in college, and so later in life she picked up a bow. And while I was working in California, she came over to a couple of the seminars and sessions that I did, and so we've been on and off. Well, Phyllis will be 81 in August, and
Okay.
uh, has competed against uh, kids that are a quarter of her age and holds her own. She just this past April, she finished fourth among all U.S. women at that event, and she's just a pistol. And again, while there, the whole reason for this last visit with her is that there is an Army rehabilitation hospital in Honolulu, and it's open to any service, uh, Army, Marine, whatever. So they can go there for just rehab or just a vacation or whatever, that and rent a room. And they have picked up or started adaptive sports, and one of them is archery.
Okay.
So Phyllis said, "MJ, you need to come. I'll introduce you to this young go-getter, rec therapist." And anyway, I was there, and there were several that are there full time, and the rec therapist said, "Well, can we do this inside?" And I said, "Sure, we'll do it. Where have you got a space?" And she says, "The only space we have is the dining hall." Oh, okay, that'll be different. So we set up a couple of the metal warming racks as a
Oh,
backdrop and put up a piece of foam. And two of the guys, one guy was a double amputee, and I have apparatus that lets him shoot a bow uh, in a power chair, and uh, the fascinating
wow.
thing is while we're doing this, I look out and there's a viewing windows, and all of the staff are watching this happen. And these guys weren't watching Gunsmoke that afternoon. They were shooting a bow.
They were shooting. Oh, yeah. MJ, when did you know you were different?
Oh, I don't know. It has been ongoing. I I have just sent an interview. I spoke with uh, a young lady who's the editor of Bow International. It's a magazine out of Germany. And so I got recommended for this interview by a very dear friend who was on the Olympic team for Spain. And Juan Carlos Hidalgo, I've just known him for a long, long time. We've done sessions kind of around the world. And he sends this message to Christina and says, "Well, have you contacted MJ? Because if there's anybody that knows some of these answers, it's him." And I thought, wow, that's kind of nice to have that sort of recognition. And I've just been very fortunate to be in the uh, right place and amenable to whatever. As I the closing piece of the CEO group, I have over the course of my lifetime worked with folks that are a bit of a challenge. That's
Uh-huh.
mine.
I've
And
worked with a few of those too.
but that is often the environment that you're in, and you have to, because your job is it's not necessarily predicated on having to interact with them, but they're going to be there in the peripheral, or they're going to
Mhm.
try to micromanage. And so I tell a lot of them, if you could see what goes on behind my eyes,
Mhm.
you have no idea. And it's
Yeah.
just it is that protective mechanism that we all have, and it's just a matter of knowing the value and when it's necessary
Yeah.
to survive,
Right.
and allow it to be whatever it is that I I watched my wife. Stop it. I watched my wife die. Nothing, nothing, nothing is in my life is hard.
Yeah.
Nothing.
How many years were you married?
Almost 40.
Okay. And how many years has it been since she passed away?
It will be 11 this fall.
Okay. And still hard and emotional when you've loved someone.
Boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
We did everything. We touched
You did.
base. We did so many things. And if I could share that connection,
uh Yeah.
unbelievable. And so my life is good every day. So good.
You said
I get to
many,
talk to you.
it has been wonderful. One of the things that you said, and I want, as we kind of wrap this up, I want to say that, you said multiple times you were very fortunate and right place, right time. And then you said you were amenable to it, though. And that's the difference, MJ. Many people are in the right place at the right time, or in places. It's how do we see it? Do you show up curious and wanting to learn and grow and be better? That's then how these experiences take you to the next experience that take you to Paris, where you have to be neutral. I'm going to be watching. They're going to like track you or something because they got cameras everywhere now.
Yeah. That,
But you get to decide how you're going to be, you know.
that's so true. And Malcolm Gladwell, his
Uh-huh.
book Outliers,
Uh-huh.
the ones that were at the right place at the right time in history, uh, and they did what they did, and
Yeah.
in many cases, because they were okay in the space that they were, that's what made them outliers. They didn't try to conform to what the world mandated. No, I'm going to play the guitar this way. No, my songs are going to go this direction. No, I think we could do better. And
Yes.
and let's test my idea. And that's always been kind of a saving grace in that the I I I listen,
Uh-huh.
but I don't always buy in wholly. I also I listen to all sides, because if
Mhm.
you don't have that roundedness, you're missing a lot, and
Yes.
your bias, and we all have biases. That's how we that's the environment that you live in. You are skewed by being surrounded by corn and bean fields.
Yes. Yes.
And
So
so
my
go
tip
ahead.
my tip is when behind the scenes I'm thinking things and I don't say them out loud. I call them my speech bubbles. And if they start to pop and I start to twitch, somebody should move because I'm going to say all the things,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, and sometimes it needs to be said in a very direct way, compassionately. So, but you're right. We're humans, imperfectly
Yes,
so.
that's right. And again, I will often tell the athletes, because you are human, you are going to want better, and
Yeah.
yet you need to develop the skill to be better. And because you're
Yes.
human, you will be that way the rest of your life. So
Yeah.
figure it out. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, an aspect. I was on Oahu, and I have a close friend that practices Kyoto, and that's the kind of goofy, uh, long bow. It's a Japanese style, very,
Okay.
very traditional. And he said, "Well, we're going to have practice. Come on over." And the sensei was an 80-year-old guy that was just so nice to be around. After 2.5 hours, they permitted me to shoot 3 arrows.
Oh,
There was no reason for me to shoot an arrow until I understand why. If I don't understand
wow.
the approach, if I don't understand the wherewithal, if I don't understand the procedure or the process, why would you shoot an arrow? And so I see that often with a beginner, in
Mhm.
that they're just having a good time and they're flinging arrows and just enjoying themselves. And the lightning strike is when an arrow goes in the middle of the target, and whoever is supporting their yay, do it again. That kid hasn't got a clue how to do it again. And so they're looking back like, you never told me how to do it again, and yet you want me to do it again. And so you're setting me up to fail because you
Yes.
have tied an expectation that I am a good person. You didn't clap when I shot my first arrow. You didn't clap when I shot my 20th arrow. You only clapped when I poked a hole in the middle of this piece of paper. And now that piece of paper defines my value. 3 mil of parchment determines my value
But isn't that what we do with young people in life, right? We haven't
all the
given them the
time.
tools. And then when they do that one time, that's what we reward. And that's why they're so unready for the world. Like that's why they need us, MJ. They need us.
Agree, Cheryl. Thank you. And it's a fun trip. I'll send
Yeah.
you a video clip of a young
Okay.
lady that she's my why.
Okay. And I want to know, will you come back after the games when you're back in the States and all of that happens? Will you come back on and tell us about it? Like and talk
Oh,
more with me about it?
yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, if you don't get disqualified for not being neutral.
The fortunate thing is uh, most everybody that will be there knows me. I have uh,
Okay.
friends and coaches across the world. I have a
That's
coach friend from Israel. I have a coach, and we've traded shirts from the Islamic Republic of Iran, uh, from Great
wow.
Britain, from Singapore, and Hong Kong, and South Africa. And so I'm just pretty blessed,
Yeah.
and they already know that I have a tendency to bend some rules.
You
And
might you mean like crossing the line? Like there are lines that you cross? Is that what you do?
that's right. Yeah. Yeah. You let me back in this plane, or your life is going to
Or
be miserable for another
yes.
hour. Yeah. And to kind of blend it, I usually have a commemorative pin of some sort. So I'll trade a pin or
Oh,
something just as a okay.
that's good.
Thanks for letting me do what I do.
Yeah. Wow. I could talk to you for days more, and we will. But thank you so very much for just sharing your experiences, your heart and wisdom and all of those things. I can't wait to talk to you after the games.
An incredible pleasure for me, and I do have just a grand time trying to share some of the experiences that I
Yeah.
have been, and making people even more open to life,
Yeah.
bring
And
life.
that's why I wanted to talk to you because people need to hear that. And if it's not in a book form or but it's a conversation to learn from one another, that your heart is very evident. So what a privilege. Thank you.
I certainly appreciate the opportunity.